Welcome back to the show. There's no telling where we'll go. So come and share a laugh on the Imp and Skizz podcast.
Well, today's podcast is going to be a little different than the last 14. That's right. This is podcast number 15. And we've been putting out an Imp and Skizz podcast every single Friday for 14 weeks straight. And this one would make 15. However, Skizzle Man is under the weather right now. Very, very sick. Unable to get together. Unable to record this podcast with me today. So instead, what we're going to do is, because we do have 14 pieces of absolute gold, if I must say so myself, we want to revisit some of the best moments of those in case you guys missed them, or in case you want to just relive some of the great moments once again. So that's what we're going to do today to make up for the fact that we can't get you a brand new one. And hopefully you guys enjoy it nonetheless. But we're going to start things off today with a clip from the very first episode where we talk about how we got into Minecraft to begin with. It's what started the path to where we're at now, though.
Yeah.
Because it was a day at, I believe, Taco Bell, when, we had just started playing Minecraft and stuff, right? Like somehow, I don't even remember how we got, my son started playing Minecraft, and so I was trying to help him and stuff with like that, but it was our buddy Joe, right, that brought up Minecraft.
First, my son's who I first heard about Minecraft from, and it was about 6 months to a year before that conversation. And my son, by the way, when he says, "Dad, I want you to try this or watch this show," he's right 100% of the time. He's always right. And I was like, I don't have time for games. I don't have time for games. And so he's like, just sit down and play it. So I played it, and I stopped after like 10 minutes. I'm like, I'm going to sink into this game. Yeah. And I just stopped, and I didn't touch it for all that time. And then Joe was just like, "You guys, have you heard of Minecraft?" I'm like, "I have. That game is very addictive." Yeah. And then you gave it, you had the same thing. You're like, I don't have time for games. Right. You know what I mean? When it came to us, so your son telling you, and then you started playing, and boy, did you lean into it.
Oh, yeah. So episode 1 was a fun, let's get to know us a little bit better and why we're doing this podcast and some of our history. But it didn't take us long to jump into a bit of a heavier topic. And one of my favorites, it was called What's Stopping You? And it turned out to be way more inspirational than either one of us could have imagined.
There's a million reasons not to do something, right? And when you want to do something, all those things are going to peek their ugly heads, right? And I had a girl I was doing personal training for, just for a short bit of time. She wanted to make a change in her life. And I had said, you need to understand on this first session that there's 2 of you in this room right now. This is not the 2 lives, 1 life thing. It's not that. Right. I said, there's 2 of you in this room right now. And one of them is going to tell you that you're not worth this, that you're too old to do this, that you're too out of shape to do this. You don't deserve it. You can't do it. That voice is going to just continue to peck at you. And the other version of you is the one that called me and said that you wanted to do this. And I said that first girl, she's not allowed in this room. I said, so if you're going to allow her in this room, I don't want any part of this. Yeah. I want to talk to the second girl, and that's it. And she's like, okay. And my point being there is that when you do want to do something, everybody has something to offer or something that they want to do. If you want to be a content creator, if you want to do music, if you want to do dance, you want to act, you want to sing, whatever it is, you want to do something, you want to change in your life, you want to push something. There's really good news that I have to tell everybody is that you are legitimately the only person that can stop you. Yeah. Everybody thinks that there's some sort of external force. And I'm not trying to suggest for a moment that it's easy. It's not going to be easy. Right. I always compare it to the caterpillar turning to a butterfly. I can guarantee you that during that moment, the butterfly is like, ow, you know what I mean? It probably hurts the whole time. It's change hurts. Yeah. It's discomfort should be welcome, and you have to embrace and be okay with it. And you have to keep in your head that when you want to do something, when you want to change, or maybe it's not even change, you want to do something in your life. You have complete control. I think people are going to try to stop you. People are going to try to tell you can't do it. Forget it. They put them over there. You are in control. You are the only one that can actually stop you when you want to do something.
Exactly. So it's time for episode 3, and our topic this time is what it means to grow up. So naturally, we have to tell a story about anything but. I think the story that comes to mind was the day I was actually trying to do my work, and you wouldn't let me. You remember where that went down?
Yeah. So you were doing your work, and you were so engrossed in your work, it was bothering me, I think. And I'm like, I got to break him out of this. I miss my buddy. And I brought in a cup of water, and I decided I'm just going to pour it on your head. But I wasn't planning on dumping it. I was just going to go just drop by drop, just out of your head. I just wanted to do that. And I'm doing this, but boy, had you had enough. And so I was doing this, and you spun around, and I remember seeing in your eyes, like, oh, today was the wrong way to do this. Like you were, I guess I didn't pick up on the fact that whatever was going on in your work was not going well in that moment.
Yeah,
so I
wasn't in the mood for your shenanigans.
I picked a bad point, and you spun around, and your intention, which I would have deserved every bit of it, was you're going to knock that water into my face.
That was the hope, smack the cup, have it just go splash right into your face.
That's what you wanted to do. And when you did it, you got nothing but cup. I remember you never touched my hand. You should have hit my hand, but you hit.
It was like straight. I was like a ninja.
Well, you were, dude. The cup just vanished. So where I was like this, and I'm holding the cup in front of me, and you just whip your arm, and it wasn't like my arm didn't move. The cup was just missing all of a sudden. And I was like, oh. And I realized there was still a lot of water in that cup. And I'm like, where's it? Why am I dry? And and then I hear this whoosh on the other side into Grumpy Man's cube. And I hear him go, I don't want to. You can't. I'm going to have to bleep it if I say what he said.
He was decided to keep it PG-13, so I can't repeat what he said. But it ended with, do you guys even work here? I remember that one after bleep, bleep, bleep.
Do you kids even work here?
Yeah. Oh, do you kids? That's right. He threw in the kids.
Yeah.
That's right.
You kids even work here?
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, you know what? And that is, since I like to dance in all the different stages of growing up, I'm like, it's time to go into the last one. I'm like, that's on me. That's my fault. I'll come clean that up. And I went over and there was water all over his cube. And I cleaned up everything. I cleaned it up and I apologized to him because at the end of the day, he was a miserable dude, but I don't want to make it worse. Right. I found no pleasure in that. It's funny now, but at the moment, it wasn't like I was trying to hide my laughter. It was like, man, this guy's already miserable. And that was bad. That was really bad. I felt bad.
Yeah. But that probably wasn't the most memorable piece of that episode. I'd say the part where Skizz and I started singing a song. Yeah, you guys remember. I don't think we should let go of our childhood ever. Yeah. You know what I mean? I keep thinking like that Toys R Us jingle. I don't want to grow up.
I'm a Toys R Us kid. Yeah. There's a million toys at Toys R Us that I can play with. Right?
Exactly. I think you nailed it.
From cars to trains to video games.
Oh my gosh.
That's something. There is. I want to know the whole thing now.
I think one of the best things about the Imp and Skizz podcast so far is we've been able to go back and forth between just kind of being silly and talking about light subjects and also getting into some of the heavier stuff and giving some of our experiences in life. And sometimes we even say things that are slightly profound, which I think in this instance, I kind of surprised myself. There is a quote that I didn't know about, but Mumbo liked to say a lot. And I think it was Roosevelt that said it. I might be wrong. But he said, comparison is the thief of joy. And like that has resonated with me so much because every time I see myself looking at other content creators and going and thinking, I feel like I'm doing pretty good. I hold a candle to their quality and their level of what they're doing. Why am I not getting the views they're getting? And then I realize I got to stop doing that because it's making me sad. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they had their journey. I have my journey. They're not the same journey. They're never going to be the same journey. I just need to accept that and just be myself and do what I can do because that's what I can control. So since Skizz is out sick this week and I'm the one at the helm editing this episode of our podcast, I think I'm going to take advantage of this situation and I'm just going to show you all the stuff I said that was profound. All right, I'm just kidding. We'll give you some of Skizz's as well.
There's kind of a bigger picture here is that we do find ourselves I would say, there's a lot of division in the world right now. I think that most people would agree with that. And I also would venture that division has always been there. And that's an unfortunate fact of the matter. And I think that the inability for us to not necessarily see eye to eye, but properly have a conversation is because the intention of conversation has gone askew. And what I mean by that is I've talked about this before in other avenues, but unless you're a lawyer or you're on the debate team, stop conversing to win. Stop doing it, right? And I'm willing to bet many people just said amen because they're aware of people that do that, right? Yeah. And also keep in mind, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you might be that person. And what I mean by this is, like I said, there is a time and place for debate. It's in a courtroom or it's going to be you're actually on a debate team. But if you're actually having a conversation, and it's okay to want to prove your side. I mean, I can dig that. Mm-hmm. But if the intention of the conversation it suddenly becomes winning the conversation. I don't think you're doing it right, because what you're going to end up doing is shutting yourself off to a very real opportunity to learn something.
So the last clip you heard was from our episode 5 podcast called The Art of Conversation, which was one of my favorite podcasts that we've done. I think Skizz and I both had a huge amount of passion around this subject in particular. And as you just heard, he had some great things to say on the subject. And I believe I did as well.
If you end up being wrong, let's just say they actually did get to a point to where whatever point they're trying to make, they better illustrated it or whatever you want to call it. Those are great moments. Those I like the feeling of being. Most people don't like it.
Most people don't like that.
Yeah.
Like, because like it puts you in that vulnerable spot of having to admit, even if only to yourself, that you were capable of being wrong.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people associate that with being a failure.
Yeah.
Right. And
drop it.
Yeah. If you're able to drop that, like that can be so enlightening.
Yes.
To go, I mean, imagine going into a conversation where you're 100% convinced what you're about to say is right, and you know that person doesn't think that way, and you're, by the end of the conversation, you're going to convince them. That's that battle, right, ensues. And then suddenly along the way, you open your mind a little bit, you hear what they're saying, because conversation is not just speaking, right? It's also listening. And that's the part that most people fail at, I'll myself included. So you actually open your mind, you listen, and then you start to interpret that information in a different way, and then you suddenly realize, oh, maybe all the things that I thought aren't actually correct, and you allow yourself to take that in. That puts yourself in a very vulnerable space. But if you're okay with it and you allow yourself to be okay with it, you just got 10 times smarter.
Oh,
because
yes.
You dropped the walls,
yes.
right? Those walls were blocking you from gaining information that could help you through life.
I'm clapping. That was really well put. Those walls are blocking you from gaining information.
Yeah. So episode 6 of the podcast rolls around, and Skizz and I realized that the last couple episodes has actually been pretty heavy. We've been into some pretty heavy topics. So we decided to lighten the mood a little bit, and we titled this one, We're Idiots.
So I want you to think about the electrical towers in the desert. They're big metal pyramids.
Yeah.
And they go up, 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 up. And then as they get really high, then they actually straighten out and go up even further. Those things are ridiculous to the point to where the ladder for them, there are these metal pegs that come out of one of the corners. It comes out of I want to say either the northeast pole or the southeast pole. But it doesn't even start for like 20, 25 feet up, because they don't want idiots like me climbing it. Well, I was going to climb it. Now, how do you make it to the first? Because I was a gymnast. I was a gymnast.
Oh,
and so I was able to,
like Spider-Man.
I was able to grab a bar, and I was able to do like a kick over to get into an upright position on it, grab on it and do the next one. I was young and fit, right? I was definitely not 4, so I'm not giving myself a pass on this one. And I can't say this enough. Do not do this. So I was there with a couple of buddies, and they were not into me doing this. I'm like, I just want to climb this. They're like, you don't understand. This is very dangerous. I'm like, I'm going to climb it. So I just went for it, and I hop up, and I get to the metal pegs, and I start climbing, and I just go into this zone. I'm like, just go all the way. And I was in kind of a self-destructed mode anyways, but I was like, I'm just going. Well, this is not 20 feet, 24 feet. This is like, I think at the top of it's probably between 120, 150 feet.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah, my 10 feet feels like nothing now.
Yeah, this is like a situation to where as I'm climbing, I did have that voice that was like, can you stop, please? And that self-preservation. You have to stop. If you slip, there's no surviving this. So I just kept on climbing and kept climbing because that's what I wanted to do. And I'm going up and up and up. And next thing I know, I can actually hear the from the cables. I'm that close to them. And I heard later that one of the charges could have jumped, and got me. I don't know how true that is. I'm not an electrician. But anyways, so I get up there and I look down at my buddies, and they look like ants. They're just looking up at me, and they're not laughing. They're not cheering me on. They're very upset. And they should be. And they're just like, can you please come down? And all of a sudden, I'd never like realized it, but those things are moving. And so I'm up there, and it's swaying because you're that high. And in that moment, I can actually conjure up that feeling in my body right now. I was like, I have to get down now. And it felt like it took me an hour to get down because every step was so cautious. That's something that it's not necessarily a funny story, but it's an example of like, I feel really grateful when people talk about, Skizz articulates well, all this wisdom. And I'm like, these people need to be reminded that I can be a real moron.
Yeah. What is it with heights? Like, because you and I both had immediately went to, oh, I used to climb tall things that were, but at some point I must have got over my fear of heights, because I also decided it would be fun to jump off my parents' roof into the pool.
Oh my gosh.
So I don't know if you remember my parents' old house.
Yeah.
They had the patio extended, like where the patio ended, the pool began.
Yeah.
So there wasn't much gap. So you could literally just go off of the patio roof and dive into the pool. It was pretty dangerous still, because the pool was only about 6 feet deep.
Yeah. Oh
so to jump from 10 feet up and then make sure you don't hit the bottom of the pool, you don't go head first, obviously. But yeah, I used to do stupid stuff like that all the time. And I started thinking could have slipped off the edge and still hit the side of the pool. Could have jumped too far.
Yep.
Could have, hit the bottom with such force that I broke a bone. Could have fell through the roof. So many things could have happened. The worst thing that happened was my parents found out and I got grounded. But
oh, dude, that's you getting lucky.
Yeah, exactly. So I've always admired just how great of a father Skizz is to his children. And over the years that I've known him, he's given me a few pieces of advice on how to be a better father myself. And, just by having years and years of experience, we've both learned quite a few things about parenting. So once we got talking about some of these things, we realized this could be a good podcast topic. And that's what episode 7, parenting, was all about.
When it comes down to it, I think one of the things, and I know you've heard me say this before, but sort of the rule of thumb, if you will, is that when one of your kids is asking to do something with you, and I am talking about when they're really young, actually, for the most part, this has to do with them being young. When they ask to do something with you, whether they want to go throw the ball or they want to kick it around or whatever it is, the answer is yes. It's unequivocally yes. It's always yes, and that's easy because now you don't have to think about it. It means it's yes. Now, if you're in the middle of a meeting and you're speaking, I mean, I know there's differences here, but you will recognize those differences. You'll know when you prioritized finishing the dishes over going to throw a frisbee. You'll recognize when you prioritize working on that project inside the garage over going to the park, to go hit the swings with your kid. You'll be able to recognize that. And here's what's interesting. If you prioritize all the nonsensical stuff over this, and this is a direct statement. I am referring to the dishes as nonsensical when it comes to creating a memory with your child. If you prioritize that over those moments, you will remember that. You will remember that you lost an opportunity, because when they grow up and you look back and you wish you could have those days back, those moments are going to come out. And I remember thinking, I don't ever want to feel that way. So the answer is always going to be yes.
Yeah.
To the point where, I've had a project in the garage I'm working on, and my daughter came, this many years ago. She came out, she's like, hey, can we throw? And I just dropped, yep, the answer is yes. We just go.
Yeah. And
to the point to where I am failing at that own advice right now, because my son, who you've seen him, he's a fitness trainer, and he's huge into fitness. He's been asking me over and over again to work out with him, and I won't. I need to do it. I need to get over myself. I don't want to do it because I'm like, dude, I'm really, really going to slow you down. Like literally, I'm going to be very embarrassed because you look the way you do, and I look like this, and I cannot lift what you lift.
But it's not about
that, man.
He just wants to spend some time with
his
dad.
Right.
Which is not always going to be the case.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially when they get to certain ages. But I think we should clarify one thing that you said, though, is the answer is always yes. It's not like every time your kid wants something, you say yes.
Oh, no.
It's not that. It's not like, hey, Dad, I want an iPad. And you're like, yes.
No,
You're saying specifically if they're asking for your time,
yes,
not necessarily your money.
Yeah. If they're asking to create a memory with you, you better say yes. So I'm really glad you cleared that up, because it's not like, oh yeah, eat chocolate for dinner. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
There's a reason. Spoiling is exactly that, right? You're spoiling their ability to survive later. That's what it is when you spoil somebody. But if you're going to spoil them with memory making.
So not all podcast topics spawned from some big epiphany that we had about something profound that we had to offer the world. No, sometimes it was just a matter of chilling on the couch with my wife, watching a TV show called Ghost Adventures, and realizing it could be pretty cool to just tell ghost stories.
I went to a cabin with a buddy of mine. It was a friend of mine and his parents. It was very young. A friend of mine and his parents, and we went to this cabin, right? And we showed up very, very late. It's one of those things where we play Phasmophobia. You know how creepy it is to go into the cabin at night?
Yeah.
It was one of those situations where it was a really, a cabin in the middle of the night, and you're showing up, and it wasn't theirs. It was like they were borrowing it from a friend, or I don't really know, right? We have a cabin. Here's the key. Well, we walk in, and it's really this kind of like little spooky, not dirty or anything, beautiful cabin, but just very, very dark, very quiet, very long hallways, the whole thing. And so my buddy's like, I guess, our room's going to be down in this hall. So I'm like, okay. So I go walking down that hall, and it's really kind of dark, and I can see, but it's dark. And all of a sudden, I wasn't even scared when this happened. Okay. I was not scared. I walk and I feel like when you're walking and there's a step that you didn't know that was coming, that feeling that you're falling over type thing.
Yeah.
I walk and it was like this slope, like it sloped down in this hallway, and it was like a very cold breeze at the same time. I just, I'm like, oh, what was that? And then I went back and I was like, this hallway sloped. I wasn't afraid at all. I had no idea what just happened. And my buddy's like, what are you doing? And I'm dragging my foot across the ground, trying to find the slope. And he's like, what is this? I said, this just sloped down on me. So he starts doing it. He's like, it's a perfectly flat hallway, dude. And I'm like going back and forth. I'm like, what just happened? It was like a year or two later, I was watching a special on the paranormal, and they were talking about when you walk through a spirit, you feel like you just stepped down and you feel a cold breeze. I'm like, no, you know what I mean, dude? Like, am I heebie-jeebies? Like, I was nothing about that experience frightened me. I was just like, that was a really weird sensation. It was years later watching this paranormal, and I remember being like, no way, because they explained verbatim, like exactly what I had felt that night. And to this day, I was like, okay, I mean, then here comes the logic piece, right? Because we only do use a teeny tiny bit of our brain. It has the ability to fill in a lot of gaps. And I think that I could have just had a weird sensation or a teeny tiny bit of lightheadedness. There's a possibility that I never actually felt the coldness, but because 2 years later I saw the special, my brain filled it in that I did feel the coldness. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different avenues here that could make it, that could logic your way out of it. But when you go right to the fundamentals of the experience and what I learned 2 years later, and the fact that when I had the experience, I wasn't looking for this stuff, holy moly.
Yeah.
I think I walked through a spirit, dude.
You probably did.
It didn't even ask my permission.
I don't think they do.
Yeah.
I don't think they ever do. It is quite interesting to think about how Skizz and I came up with the topics we did for the podcast each and every week for the past 14 weeks. Because the next one, Pushing the Envelope, was episode 11. And I think this one actually stemmed from the fact that both him and I had taken separate trips to Florida and gone to the Kennedy Space Center and really just had our eyes opened on how mankind was pushing forward. And so we just wanted to talk about it a little bit. Kennedy, it's called Kennedy Space Center because President Kennedy was the one that announced, we're going to do this. Like, the US, we're going to travel to space. We're going to put a man on the moon. And so it was like his speech. And watching that speech made me realize he's not doing this because there's something beneficial, economically or whatever, about landing on the moon. He's doing this because as a species, we need this. Like, we need hope, and we need to explore and push our limits so that we have something to bond together about. And I think it was more about that, because, the idea of space travel has been debated for my entire life, because we pump up a lot of money into it. The government does, right? And so it's like, a lot of people wonder, is it worth it? And after what I saw at the Kennedy Space Center, I'd say absolutely. Yeah. Because it is us as humans pushing the envelope. And without that, we might not have all these things we enjoy today. Like, they talk about spin-offs. I was on the bus tour, and the guy driving the bus decided to forget the video that plays on the monitor. I'm going to tell people what they really need to hear. And that is that because of space exploration programs like NASA, and there's another private one, Blue Orbit, and Elon Musk's, SpaceX, right? And there's lots of, and around the world too, there's space programs. But because of all these programs, they've invented things that would have never been thought of. Yeah. Right? You had LASIK surgery, right?
Yes.
Invented by NASA.
Was it really?
It initially was to help the shuttles dock in space, because they had to have precision in cameras to the below millimeters and 4,000 times a minute be able to capture the exact measurements of what they were doing. They were able to take that technology that they were using for docking spaceships and apply it to LASIK surgery.
I had no idea.
And so they're tracking your eye movements at 4,000 times a second or whatever to make sure they have the precision to do the laser shaping of your eyes or whatever. So like not little things, that's a big thing, right? But cell phones, GPS technology, the Tempur-Pedic mattresses, the foam mattresses, like all that stuff came from NASA or programs like NASA because they needed that stuff. So what they did was they created a situation where they have a new need for something that's never been thought of before because we're doing something we've never done before.
They put themselves in a space to where they discovered new needs, right? And
space, pun intended.
Necessity breeds innovation.
So one thing that's been really cool about the Imp and Skizz podcast is the fact that Skizz and I, we don't do a lot of planning. I mean, we do obviously talk about what topics we're going to talk about each week and things like that, but we don't kind of sketch out an agenda for each show. Once we hit record, we kind of just riff. We just go with whatever comes to our minds. But there are some times when it's not that easy, and the simplest thing can totally derail our thoughts.
And I'm with you, dude. Music there's a reason, like, I've got the Hamilton memorized.
Yeah, you're into Hamilton. We didn't put that on the list because I'm not sure if it really fits
it's
a movie genre versus like a Broadway.
Well, I got to do this again. Sorry.
Oh, we didn't do this to start.
Sorry.
This happens.
That's how I line up the audio, and I forgot to do that in the beginning.
It's funny how that like kicks out of the middle of it.
Yeah.
It definitely didn't derail my train of thought.
Dude, is that how easy it is to just break your train of thought? Just make a clapping sound?
You literally cut it off with that thing. When it clicked, my brain's like, I have no idea where I was going to go next with this conversation.
Oh, I feel terrible about that. But we'll power through. So,
okay, I remember now. Jeez, wow, that really just blanked my brain out.
Whatever, dude.
Okay. No, I'm good. So with that is the last clip I have for you guys today. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you understand, we talked about this in resilience. Sometimes you just gotta figure it out. You gotta roll with whatever punches you're dealt. And this is one of those times. Skizz was sick. He was unable to get together, and we did not want to leave you guys hanging. So hopefully this did suffice. You still were able to enjoy it. And I had a lot of fun putting it together myself, kind of reminiscing over some of these moments. We've had some really great moments. I cannot believe this is episode 15. We've been doing this for 15 weeks. And I can tell you, Skizz and I are having such a great time with this podcast. We have no plans of stopping. In fact, we always just talk about how we can make it even better for the future and things like that. So we do have some plans up our sleeve. We do have some ideas on how to bring in some guests and things like that in the future. And hopefully that will happen soon. There's just some, logistics that get in the way that we got to figure out. But we will be bringing in some guests. And so the podcast will continue. It will continue to evolve and continue to grow. And hopefully you all will continue to enjoy it. So with that said, I am signing off. And hopefully next time I'll be back with my buddy. See you guys later.